Hi, this is Diane Hayworth, and welcome to another episode of Heart-Centered Success. I'm really excited about what we're talking about today. You know that I'm a coach, a speaker, and an author, and coaching is something that I'm really passionate about. I've been a client as well as a professional coach, but a lot of people ask me, when is it appropriate to find a coach? How do you find a coach? What are you looking for in a coach? That's what we're going to talk about today in this episode entitled Coaching for Success. Now, I have to tell you, I know a lot of coaches, and immediately when I thought about this topic, my friends here are the ones that I absolutely wanted to be with me today. So help me welcome back Sherry Goodwin. Sherry's been with us several times. Thanks for keep coming back, buddy. She's a strategist and a leadership coach. So we're going to be talking an awful lot about you having coaching experiences on both sides. I think that's going to be really fascinating. Thank you for coming.
My pleasure.
And Craig Kirby is here. Craig is founder and CEO of Golf My Future, My Game. Now you have a different kind of coaching experience that I think is really going to deepen this conversation, so I'm really excited that you're here.
I'm excited to be here.
Thank you for coming back, because you're also someone that's been here before.
Thank you. Thank you.
Now, where I want to start is to help you understand the difference between counseling, consulting, and coaching, because a lot of times people get that confused. Counseling usually deals with trauma or some sort of an issue in the past that's stopping you from making headway here in the present. So now that's different than a mental health issue where you absolutely should seek appropriate care. But for example, when I was going through a divorce, I had a therapist help me through that process. So that was a trauma, certainly a life-changing event that I needed help with, and that was a therapist that helped me with that. Now a consultant does something else. You would hire a consultant when you're looking for someone with a specific expertise, experience, opinion that you don't have that you need. So in my business, for example, I could hire someone like a social media consultant that could come in, look at my program, give me ideas on how I could change that, the strategy I would use for social media. A consultant also will often do the work for you. So they will come in and give a professional opinion, as well as perhaps do the work. You can hire them to execute the plan that they've created for you. So that's the difference between counseling and consulting. Coaching is, to me, a wonderful, just a wonderful process where someone helps you understand, define, and be present to where you are in your life right now and how you move forward. Now, the thing with coaching is you're the one that does the work. A coach is there to perhaps give you tools, resources, be a cheerleader, support you, mentor you, but you're the one that does the work. And it's all about moving you forward. Now, there's many kinds of coaches. Now, for example, we talked about you being a leadership coach. I'm a spiritual coach. I'm also a high performance coach. You've had coaching in the political arena from mentors and supporters, but you also coach the game of golf. But you also do life coaching in there as well, right? There's relationship coaches. I know I've had health coaches. I've had a book coach. You gave me a great referral for a book coach. I still had to write the book, but she helped me organize, go through the process. And she was the one that was sending me the emails. Did you get that chapter done? Did you make those changes? Where do you want to go next? What's your time frame? So that is an idea. Do you all have anything to add to that?
I think that makes sense. I mean, that's pretty much.
The coach says it makes sense. Does that make sense?
No, that's it.
Good. So that's kind of where we're going to start. Now, one of the things that I love about this group is that we've been on both sides of the coaching coin, so to speak. So let's talk about some of the experiences we've had as clients. Where's some of the coaching experiences you've had as a client?
Yeah, so first of all, thank you for having me back, and it's great to be here again with Craig.
Good to see you, Sherry.
Happy.
And Diane.
So coaching for me, I've hired lots of my own coaches. I actually always have my own coach. It may be a different person depending on what I'm doing or what I'm going through. So for example, I've had a business coach ever since I started, even before I started this business, to get set up and prepared. I've had a peer coach, somebody who holds me totally accountable, and we meet, and we still do this every single month. I've had a book coach when I wrote my first book, and I'll be hiring another book coach because I'm coming out with another one, so need a little kick in the butt here. And I've had, a consultant coach, so I've had a mentoring type coach where they were actually helping me dive deep into my business and then also strategize around programs. So that one was almost more of a consultant coach. So there's all different kinds of permutations of these things. So really depending on where I am in my life and what I need, I'll reach out to different types of coaches, and sometimes they're a coach/consultant. So we can talk about that probably at some point as well.
And there's also, I know you mentioned a peer coach. Sometimes that's seen as a mastermind.
Yeah.
So that's another where peers get together to help support each other.
Yeah, and I've been in multiple masterminds over the years, so that's always a great place to meet other people and really dive deep and learn from each other, and really great collective energy.
I agree. Now that's, I don't know if it was officially called a mastermind, but give us an idea of some of the coaching and mastermind kind of experiences that you've had on the receiving end, where you have received that kind of mentoring, support, and coaching.
Yeah, a lot of my mentors, coaches, have been clients in regards to a lot of the political figures that I used to manage.
Yep.
So it was a point where, you know, as I shared with people, we're all teachers, learners, and doers. So we all learned from each other. We taught each other as we did what we had to do. But to sit back and to get an understanding of what they were trying to do, or more importantly, to share with me the road they were on, which is now the road that I'm on, let me know what ramp I should get off and take that detour so that I could get back on.
So was there anyone, you did a lot of political work, was there anyone that maybe took you under their wing, that served as a mentor to you? Because I think that's also an aspect of coaching.
You know, it's funny, that one person will be my dad. Believe it or not, my dad, and I joke with my dad, and I say, you know, when I was growing up, I thought I had to wear a suit every day because I saw you wear a suit to work every day. If I had known if I had known then what I know now, I would have been a plumber, or I would have been an electrician or a vocational worker, because where else can you go and make $200 in 10 minutes as opposed to working hard for not as much? But what he instilled in me is what stayed with me, and it's been that roadmap that has allowed me to teach so many other people. And it's very intriguing to me how what he shared with me, I'm now passing on to other folks. And especially when I was in the political world, all of those younger folks that worked with me, to now see them successfully running campaigns with the model that I shared, that's been fantastic. So
you had values that your dad gave you, but it sounds like he modeled behavior as well.
He did.
That was a big influence with you.
Exactly.
And I'm a big proponent, believe me, as a coach, go hire a coach, that's great. But if you have people in your life that can, now obviously when it's your dad, or if it's another family member, I think it's a kind of a slippery slope sometimes, because you want someone who can be objective. Sometimes family members aren't objective. Sometimes they can be a little hard. Sometimes they can be not hard enough on you, maybe. Sounds like your dad had that perfect balance.
He did. Yeah, he really did. And his balance was my mother.
Oh, she was the balancer.
She
okay,
was
good.
that balance which allowed me to be able to, again, travel down that road.
Oh, wonderful. Now, did you ever have friends or family members that ended up acting as a coach for you? Not everybody does. I'm just curious.
Champions, definitely. Supporters, definitely. When I was in my family business, they certainly mentored and coached me on how to do this work.
Right.
So that was really important, and that was everything from actual technical skills to just support, really saying, yes, you can do it, you go to get after it, it doesn't matter if someone rejects you 100 times. There's always somebody out there who will say yes. So there was a lot of that. And then thematically on the support side, absolutely throughout my entire life, my family's been incredibly supportive. They still are to this day. So I'm very, very fortunate in that sense, yeah.
I do think that we'd be remiss if we didn't mention that there are absolutely wonderful people. It could be in your church, could be in the chamber events, that can be wonderful mentors and supporters and coaches for you. What I found in my own life is that I'm very blessed to have very supportive family and friends, but they're not the ones typically that are going to say, you could have done that better. Let's look at that again. What could you do differently next time? That objectivity is, to me, what makes, at least maybe it's for me, it's a wonderful growth opportunity. Now, I just had lunch yesterday with one of my very good friends. She's 82 years old. She's seen everything, done everything, and she is one who will be absolutely there to go, this is great, I'm so proud of you, but she's also the one that says, how can you do it better next time? What will you do differently?
Right.
So she's not afraid to be supportive, but also that push, right? Because as much as you need the cheerleaders, and I'm a big proponent that we need to celebrate our wins and be realistic, because I think people can get stuck in the failures.
Yep.
And that's just part of your growth. But having someone that can just those questions, how can you do that a little differently next time? If you had it to do over again, would you do it the same way? Would you do anything differently? What if you looked at it from this perspective? I think that's what's wonderful. Do you find that?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, and that's hard to get sometimes in a family member. Was your dad able to do that for you?
In some cases he was, but then you also, for me, coaches are everywhere.
Yeah,
and
they really
what
are,
I mean
aren't they?
by,
Yeah.
what's that saying? The teacher will come when the student
Is
is
ready.
ready. And it's just amazing what you can learn from anyone on a given day. I remember someone telling me once, if you're fortunate to have 25% of book sense, street sense, common sense, and people sense, you'll be all right. But how many people do we know that have 95% book sense, but they can't cross the street?
I know a couple.
You know?
I know a couple.
So it's just, the coaches are everywhere. They're like these flowers right here. I mean, these flowers are so reflective of the beauty of what so many people can share with us if we're willing to accept it and to understand that their mistakes are now not for us to make a mistake, but for us to learn.
So I think that's an important point, actually, is that your teachers, your coaches, your mentors can be everywhere. If any of you have seen this show before, you know it usually takes me a hot minute to talk about my grandson, because kids and grandkids will and animals and organizations and the arts, all of these sorts of things just can shift your perspective. And to me, that's what good coaching does. Rather you see it reflected in the beauty of a flower or a beautiful sunset, or there's just something that somebody said that caught your attention, like your 25% thing. So I hope somebody out there is writing that down, because Craig comes up with some good ones, and that was one right there. That's a great teaching moment right there. So I think maybe we broaden our understanding of what coaching is, and that brings me to some of the things that makes someone coachable. And to me, it's that receptivity.
Sherry?
Yeah, what do
Yeah,
you
yeah,
think?
so,
Make somebody coachable.
As you were talking and about families and your dad and stuff, I was thinking about you have to be open to receive, right?
Yeah.
So with a family, sometimes they have their best interest is to help you, and you're like, and you bristle because you don't necessarily have the receptivity all the time to really feel that and be
It's
able
an
to
emotional
have it.
attachment.
Because there's that piece in there that starts to kind of crowd a little bit. So that's when it's a really good. So for me, it's great to actually invest and pay someone, because there's a piece of it, and I pay for my own coaching all the time. So I feel that if I've got some skin in the game now, and I've decided to make this investment, and it's investing in me, and that's pretty scary because, oh boy, what if I screw up and I don't get a return on that investment? How do you measure the return on investment? It's a whole nother show. But really, really thinking about that is, for me, really important. So when you're talking about what makes a good client,
Right.
it's that openness to really learn from, as you were saying, anything around you. So the environment. I love what your flower analogy. And for me, having worked with animals for so many years, they're incredible coaches because they're constantly reflecting back to me how I'm showing up. And kids do the same thing.
Yep.
How are you showing up in a whole myriad of ways? As a friend, as a leader, as a trainer. How effective are you? If you're actually teaching something, they're always giving that back. So you have to kind of be open to getting that kind of feedback.
Open and vulnerable.
Yeah, vulnerable. Yeah.
And I agree. I am thrilled that you had that kind of experience with your dad. That is not the experience I had with my dad.
Right.
Not that he wasn't supportive, because he was, but my dad had just come out of World War II. He had it's just different.
Right.
It was just kind of a different thing. I also pay for coaches, and when I first fell in love with the idea of coaching, I decided I wanted to be coached, and I've been coached for almost 20 years by different people. I wanted to understand styles and techniques and just how did people language. That was really interesting to me. And I know from watching other people be coached and coaching, I think that vulnerability, also the sense of commitment, because it's a time commitment, it's a resources, it's a financial commitment, and even if you're being coached by someone or mentored, whatever the word is, by someone in the neighborhood, you have to commit the time to really reflect, what am I being shown here?
Right.
And what is it, what does this mean to me? What does this mean to me, and how do I go forward? I think the sense of curiosity is also really important. I just think, what do you think about that? I just think that's a vital ingredient.
It is, and Sherry said she's paid for coaching. Well, I guess I have too.
I bet you have.
And I have because my coaching with a number of our students is being able to provide for them, but I'm learning from them. So I share with people, you can't teach what you don't know.
Right.
And you can't lead where you don't go. And to be able to understand these kids and what they're thinking about, they're coaching me so that I can coach them. There was one kid, Marquell Perkins, that's my buddy. Now, back in May, had never been on a golf course, ever. We had to convince him to come to the course. This kid now calls me every Saturday and says, when are we going back on the course? I'm ready to go on the course. But this kid also, he's a part of the ACE program, which is the Alternative Court Experience for the Department of Human Services in DC. These are kids who have found themselves in a little bit of trouble, but they have an option. And he chose golf as his option. At the end of the program, he wrote an email to his case manager, and it floored me because of everything that he learned. I mean, he talked about how he was becoming more mindful on the golf course. He talked about how his stresses were lessened being on the golf course. And he talked about the feeling of hitting a great shot. and how people would say, "Ooh," and I thought, "Wow, that's really special."
Well, and that brings up some of the benefits of coaching, right? And it sounds like this young man had exactly some of the traits that we were talking about.
Right.
He was committed. Now, in his case, there was a little extra incentive, perhaps, but he didn't have to choose golf. He could have chose
Anything.
He could have chosen anything else, right? But one of the things that you said he came out with sounds like confidence.
Mm-hmm.
Sounds like he had a process. Yours was through golf, where he went out on the course, he knew he was going to start here, and he knew he was going to end up there.
Exactly.
And he knew how to get from here to there.
Exactly.
That's what coaching is. Mm-hmm. That's what coaching is. It's helping, and he had new tools.
He sure did.
I love that you mentioned mindfulness, and I know that's something you and I both teach our clients. Mm-hmm. Even that one trait, you teach someone how to be more mindful. And how old was this young man?
He's 16.
Oh man, if I had known that at 16. But to live your whole life with that kind of an impact, that's what coaching does.
It really is. It really does. And, you know, I don't think we're put on this earth to see through one another. I really think we're put on this earth to see one another through. And that's what coaching is. It's helping somebody get through their quagmire of what they just don't understand.
They're just stuck wherever they're stuck.
Right.
They're stuck wherever they're stuck. But if they have the willingness, the curiosity, the commitment, because in this particular case, he had a lot of time commitment, I would assume.
He did, yes.
And there were in your program, there are certain steps people have, I mean, you don't slide through,
No,
right?
you don't, no.
Yeah,
No.
you're expected to do certain processes, steps to get to successfully complete that, correct?
Right, well, one was just picking him up at his house at 6:45 on a Saturday morning.
6:45,
And
16-year-old.
you know,
AM, he's
he was
talking
15
AM.
then, yeah, he was 15. He's turned from 15 to 16, but the first day he asked me, he says, "Well, what time should I be ready tomorrow?" I said, 6:45. He said, 6:45 in the morning? I said, yes. And he goes, okay. And I got there at 6:44 and he was there at 6:45. Now, the car ride to the golf course, it was really quiet. It was really quiet. But the car ride back, oh my goodness, he just talked and talked and talked. And it was that third week where that morning ride became a conversation. And I just thought that was just so phenomenal.
Well, and that brings up something else that I think is really important. And Sherry, I'm interested to see what you think about this. A lot of coaching, as a coach or a client, it's about showing up. He was there at 6:44.
Yes, yes.
He showed up. And the other thing that I love that you said was the first couple weeks were pretty quiet. But by week 3, and that's what happens with coaching. That's been my experience as a client. There's been plenty of 1, 2, maybe even the third session where I'm going, how much did I pay for this? And where is this going? And it's a process. But once you're committed, off you go. What's been your experience with that?
It's totally a process. I mean, for myself, it's always a process, and sometimes I hate my process, and I get irritated by my process. I'm making peace with my process. I'm making peace with my process right now as I write this book, because
Yep.
Right.
I have notes everywhere, and I get so irritated. I'm like, why do I keep doing this? They have tools and automation, people have a computer now. You can put this. I'm talking sticky notes and hard copy things, very old school. And you know what? It's part of my process.
Yeah.
So I accept that and just continue to show up. So what you were saying about showing up, that's the most important thing.
It really is.
After you make the commitment, don't judge it. Just do it. Just show up. Even if you don't feel like it, even if you feel unprepared, there's always something that will unfold in that moment if you allow that to happen. And it might be something microscopic that you don't even realize, and then later all of a sudden it becomes this big aha. And I have so many clients that have had exactly that happen. So you just have to start, and you have to give yourself the grace of being a beginner in this. Even most of the people that I work with are already highly successful entrepreneurs and executives. So why do they want coaching? Why, they don't need coaching, but they're looking for more dimension. They may be navigating a big change where things are a little a little sideways, and they're not feeling that confident, and they really don't want to tell anybody else that they're not feeling confident because outwardly they look like $1 million.
Right.
Everything's going perfect. And behind the scenes, maybe not so much. So, and I've had exactly the same experience myself. So for me, it's a lot about that authenticity piece, being able to walk your talk and being able to work with a coach who has done that. So for me, when I'm picking a coach, I'm always looking at, I don't know if this was part of your question, but really looking at what are my values and why do I make purchases in general? What is this consistent with? And truly, those are so for me, it's I need to trust the person. So I have to do my due diligence and make sure and have some respect. And they really have to be proven and have walked the talk. So I have to do the same then, right? So it's reflective, and so I'm always up in my game and making sure that I can navigate that space as well.
I think it's really important to always remember it is a process. You don't expect someone who's been golfing for 20 years to be at the same skill level as, was it Marcus was on day one?
Markwell,
Right?
Correct, exactly.
And coaching is
Exactly.
like that. I agree. I have had many coaches, and I do expect to be somewhere different from day one than at the 6-month mark or year mark or whatever that program is. Now, I will say this, and I'll be interested to see what you think. Sometimes I'm not in the place I thought I was going to be. There's always been growth, however. Sometimes it's not that necessarily things have gone sideways during that process, and I'm talking about me as a client, for example, but a new opportunity has been birthed that wasn't even a possibility when I started the process. But there's something about that exploration of the internal, where you are finding that confidence and you're just asking those questions, well, what if? I know I've had clients, friends of mine actually, that said, well, why do coaches ask so many questions? Because what we want to do is have you discover your answers. Now, there are certain techniques and tools that you need to show someone.
Right.
You're not just going to hand them a golf club and say, go watch Happy Gilmore and have at it, right? You're going to show them, and then they're going to develop what they're doing. I find coaching's the same way, but that shining a light on how you could shift perspective just a little bit and see things differently. To me, that is absolutely the beauty of coaching. And that's where I personally have made a lot of strides, I think, as a client. What about you?
So for me, it's all about the questions. So that's
All
where
about
the
the
big
questions.
distinguisher for me between what I do as a consultant and strategist and what I do as a coach. Coaching is a tool that I use. It's not a thing. It literally is a tool. So when I'm coaching, what that means is I am going to go through a pretty deep line of inquiry, and that's going to come from whatever I'm feeling in that space. So I use a lot of my own curiosity, and I'm just really curious about what's going on, and then I can feel what's happening in their body sometimes, and I'll ask them, so how does that feel in your body, whatever they might just say. And if they're getting all stressed out about something, they're all mad, they're not even aware of their body most of the time. It's like, oh, so where does that feel in your body? And I can feel people actually go, I don't know, and they have to literally stop that crazy talk, right, to get into their body to figure out where it is. And it's in the gut, or the heart is all tight, right? Heart's tight. Key indicator for me as a coach, something's going on here. There's a feeling space here that they're blocking, they're guarding, they're super protected in that space, or they're afraid to give it, or something. So that really helps me negotiate and navigate my questions. I don't ever have a list of questions. People always ask me, well, what's your list of questions? I have a list of questions. It comes organically from the conversation, right? It emerges in the moment.
Back and forth.
And that's how it's the process of inquiry and discovery. So as a coach, when I'm wearing coach hat, I believe the person, my client, has all of the answers already inside of them.
Yes.
Right? So they're fine. So my job is to help tease out whatever is in there that they haven't yet seen. Bring that to the light, right? Versus consulting or strategizing with business strategy, I do a lot of that too, is oh, have you tried this? Have you thought about this? What if we did a blah, blah, blah package, or do a strategic plan and we'll lay things out? We use a combination of inquiry and self-discovery and then mapping out the specific steps.
Because
So
you were actually sharing your expertise.
yeah.
We're going to share more expertise right after this.
I love taking care of my mom. It wasn't easy at first. She learned how to better communicate her needs.
And you learned how to not ignore yours.
I discovered how to make healthier meals.
And I discovered how much I enjoyed them.
Becoming a caregiver is a learning experience for everyone. Find articles, tips, and tools from experts and others who have been in your place. The Caregiving Resource Center at aarp.org/caregiving.
When I look in the mirror,
do I like what I see?
Yes. I like my teeth and I like my tongue. I like my nose. I like my ears.
And my eyes.
And I like my face. Me gusta todo.
I see a perfect reflection of me.
And I wouldn't change a single thing.
Because I am enough.
Hi, it's Diane Hayworth. We're back with Heart-Centered Success. Today we're talking about coaching for success with my friends Craig Kirby and Sherry Goodwin. Sherry, you were talking right before our break, and one of the things that came to my mind, we were talking about this at the break actually, is some of the outcomes of a good coaching experience. What would you say that would be? We talked about one of yours being confidence and having process in place. What about you?
Yeah, so for me, for myself and for my clients, it's always about confidence, clarity, and a path forward, right? So there's the emotional piece, there's the visual piece, and then there's the actual action piece. So I'm always looking for that for myself when I'm getting coaching, and also with my clients to be able to guide them toward that path. So what that looks like, so outcomes, you're kind of thinking about that. For me, the first time I invested in business coaching, specific business coaching for growing this business, I've had other businesses, but growing this one, there was a 10-time return on investment. Seriously. So there was the confidence that came through. I was able to speak with prospects in a much more compelling manner and able to convert them if they were the right ones, like that. Seriously, it was amazing. So that's the kind of thing that I was looking for my clients as well, if they were getting business coaching. Now, if they're getting executive coaching, you're not necessarily looking for a quantitative return on investment right away. You may be. It could be that you're looking to acquire a new firm. It could be that you're looking to hire different folks. It could be that it's a more qualitative metric, which would be something like preparing for a meeting, a presentation at a board meeting, and making sure that your agenda is completely consistent with the mission, objectives, whatever, and that you get up there and present and you get the buy-in from the board members. And that's a huge thing. So a lot of executives may not have done that, especially if they're new to the role or they've shifted from a different executive role to this role or something like that can be fairly daunting. So to be able to gain that type of confidence, clarity, and then have an action plan towards your goals and then take the action so that you actually accomplish something is really important. Now, having said that, I was a big box checker, meaning I'm like, how much money do they make? Do they make more? These are for my clients, right? I want them to do really well. They need to achieve their goals. Well, so that was all about me. So that's my goal, is for them to achieve their goal, but their goal is about them achieving whatever's most important for them. And so once I started to really take myself out of that process, it was actually quite egocentric in the beginning about, oh, I need them to do really well so that I look really good. How bad is this? Not good for coaching. But it was true. So I really needed to step aside there and allow whatever needed to emerge for that person in the moment. And the feedback that I got from a lot of my clients, so several have risen their businesses to crazy new heights. It's really pretty impressive what they've done through their own commitment.
Right.
But what they tell me in testimonials is they talk about how much more peace and balance and joy they feel in their life, which for me, when I first started hearing that, I was like, what were your metrics? How well did you do? Because I wanted these hardcore things. But what they're really valuing is quality of life, meaning in life, depth of connection, and purpose. And so that's been really the driver for me, is really making sure that piece is in a good place. Because the strategy and the execution of the task, these people can kick butt. It's not a problem. But the whole person, the being, and that connection, that's where sometimes there's some issues.
Well, I think that's important that people have an idea of where they want to go. So, for example, learning golf, getting those life lessons, getting their business in track. For me, it's the high performance, it's the spiritual piece. Sometimes they don't know what that means. But growth, personal growth along the path, that's what you're talking about. Well, yes, the bottom line is better, could be worse, depending on what they're doing. But that personal growth is so important. If you're hiring a health coach, maybe you're hiring a health coach because your triglycerides need to be reduced. That would be a measurable issue, but you're also going to be learning new recipes. You're going to be meeting people probably in that kind of environment that have similar goals. So there's a sense of community, but I think that a lot of the coaching benefits have to do with that mental, spiritual growth. It just, I mean, obviously as a spiritual coach, that's what I think. And people come to me because sometimes they're like, I don't know what's wrong.
Right.
I just know my life doesn't work the way I want it to. So it's not like a bottom line that they're looking for in 6 months. They just want to feel, even though they can't language it necessarily, more connected to that inner divine, which is what we all do in a different way.
We do. We have to. And I think to be an effective coach, you have to be coachable.
Absolutely.
And I say that 3 weeks ago, my computer crashed. It died. I mean, I went to push the button on, and it was a black screen. And I just excused myself from the office. And then I came back, and I went, we've got a problem. And you talk about confidence and clarity and action. Well, the confidence was I didn't hang myself because literally 9 years was on that computer. And clarity, I asked God just to give me the clarity to figure this out. And I spoke with my next door neighbor, my buddy Brett, who is this IT guru. And the first thing was the action piece. He was able to save and back up all of the information on that computer. And I went, whew. That became a coachable moment because I knew what I wanted to do, but I had to acquiesce to him to help me get through this.
You surrendered.
I surrendered, exactly. And the confidence piece was I then had to learn a new system. And as you talk about your Post-it notes and what you're comfortable with, he was switching me from a computer to a Chromebook. And they're two different operating systems. So I went from OneDrive to Google. And I was just at wit's end.
We've all been there.
Oh yeah.
You know, so he was able to merge it so that I'm now back on I'm on a new system, but it has remnants of the old system. So again, that comfort level. So you, again, Sherry, you talk about confidence and clarity and action. I experienced it.
And growth.
And growth, exactly.
You had to say, this doesn't work.
Right. I had to give it up. And now this new Chromebook I have, I love it. It's great, and it's lighter too.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, they
Those
are.
things are cool.
I think that's kind of why a lot of people seek coaching. Something's not working.
Exactly.
Rather, it's their business, their spiritual life, their health, whatever it is, something's not working. And they know that, I agree with you, and you and I have spoken about this too, I believe that everything you ever need is inside. Sometimes you need help accessing that. I also love, you both have mentioned in parts of our conversation today, feeling. I think the mind, body, spirit thing, I'm always asking clients, how do you feel about this? Where are you feeling it in your body? When you're teaching coaching, It's all about
Exactly.
the body, right? Because where do you feel confident? It's not,
That's
I mean,
it.
it can be here, but this is where you stand differently. This is where your confidence, this is where your connection piece is.
That's it.
So that mind, body, spirit thing, I think, is absolutely vital to coaching. Let's talk about traits of a good coach. We talked about a client, someone who's seeking coaching, whether it's paid coaching or finding a mentor, that they are teachable, that they have, they're curious, they're committed, and they're willing to commit resources, time, whatever that is. Let's talk about what makes a good coach. Now, you've been around a lot of coaches and mentors. What are some of the traits, and a lot of them will be the same, but what are some of the traits that make a really good coach or mentor, do you think, Craig?
I think exposure and mistakes.
Okay.
Because the person who never makes mistakes loses a great many chances to learn something.
Yeah.
And I shared earlier, again, you can't teach what you don't know. When you expose yourself to things, you have a better understanding. And so what may have been a mistake is now a learning step.
Oh, I agree. What would you add to that?
That's huge. Yeah, so for me, it's two things, and it's really the same thing, it's listening and questioning. So to be a good listener, you want to ask a good question, right? So you ask a good question, but you better pay attention to that response. And sometimes what I've found is the response is not consistent with what they're telling me about something else. There's a lot of this too, for me, I've worked with horses and dogs, but mostly horses for a long time, and they don't like incongruence. So they can sniff that out. They start to get real suspicious and doubtful, and they don't know what to do with that, right? So I picked up a lot of that from them. So I can feel into, again, the feeling you were just talking about, that feeling into the question and being really deeply curious, and then just shutting off the mind. So for me, there is no back chatter in my mind when I'm coaching somebody.
Right.
There's no voice in my head. People have asked me, well, what do you do when those little there's no voice. There is literally nothing. And it's about dropping into that place of being totally present and just listening. Because when you do that, you can assess really quickly what's happening, and you can ask the next question, and then you can start to sniff out and get curious about, well, what about that? And you just mentioned this and this, and repeating the words back to them so that they can hear what they just said, because oftentimes there's not consciousness about what's coming out. So I'll parrot back for them the actual verbiage that they used and say, you know, what about this, this, and this? How does that relate with this, what you just shared? And they're diametrically opposed, right? And they're like, oh, I didn't even see that. So this is really about that place of asking the question, but being in that place of really deep listening. A lot of people don't do that. And I've had my own investments in coaching, I've had a few that are good at that, and I've had more that are not so good at that. They're more tactical, and they really want to give you the help, and that's fine. But they give you the wrong help because they didn't ask the question and really listen to what was going on and what I'm saying I really want to do. And so that can be incredibly painful. I'm pretty cognizant of that when I'm coaching someone. Just because they say they want something, it may not be at all what they're really looking for. They may be looking for permission to go in a completely different direction
That they're not aware of.
they're not aware of.
So then does time also is that also a trait of a good coach or a great coach? And I say that, I've got a really dear friend, Jimmy Garvin, and he always
Not
shares
Jimmy.
with me. Yeah, Jimmy.
Who's Jimmy?
And he's from Naples, Florida, and Immokalee, Florida
Okay.
is really where he's from. But he said, Craig, he goes, people will tell you anything, but time will tell you the truth.
I think that is very profound.
And so when you sit and listen to what Sherry said, you talk about the depth of being coached. And they'll tell you what may be convenient. But as the road is traveled, is it really being traveled the way it should be?
So I just have a comment on that. So I love that, and I need to sit with that and think about that a little bit. I would say yes, and in that moment that you're in with them, for me, time stands still. And so you have past, present, future, all kind of right here
Right.
in this one container. The possibilities, the what happened, the this, the now. So I don't know that time matters in that sense.
Right.
Time will prove certain things out, but in that moment, the time is eternal. I know it sounds kind of crazy. I'm
No,
getting in
I
a
get
woo-woo
it.
thing here,
Yeah, I
but
get it.
but it's almost, I don't know how to explain. It's
More
almost
timeless.
timeless.
Right.
Yes.
Now, I saw a different take on that, actually. I get what you're saying, and I have seen clients over time progress or hit a bump and take a different turn. I will say at the moment when we were discussing what we were discussing, they believed what they were saying. The more you help them unearth those ideas, however, sometimes the first thing that comes to mind isn't always what they're there for. Some of the things that I think make a great coach is creating a safe space.
Huge, yeah.
Because sometimes people want to people please, they want to please their coach.
Right.
So they'll tell you what they think you want to hear, when really it's not about the coach. It's not about us. So create a safe space with non-judgment. And I tell that to mine all the time. And I certainly had my
Huge.
whole little ego thing. Yep,
Yeah.
I want everybody to do great. And I think there's a real shift between you want them to do great for you till you want them to do great for them.
Totally.
The other thing about time is I'm working with a coach right now that I'm the client. Just fantastic experience. I have never been around someone where the presence, that he is so totally present with me. It's unbelievable. I've never been around someone like that. The other thing that I've noticed is he gives me time, or I should say creates the space for me to wander through whatever question he's asked. I'm like, it's this, no, maybe it's this, nope, maybe it's that. And just by sitting in a loving cocoon, really, is what he's created this space for me. It allows me to wander through until I actually get to where I'm going. And believe it or not, it's in that hour. And it's usually not where I started. So he uses time as another type of tool. I feel like he's absolutely totally present with me in the moment, but he's creating space for me to explore. And a lot of times I'll be on that off ramp, like you'll say, and he'll gently get me back on the freeway, just gently.
Right.
But he has created this safe, non-judgmental, safe place for me to explore what I need to. That to me is a wonderful coach. I also want someone who's curious, curious about me. I know I'm really curious about my clients. I want to know, understand what do they want to get out of coaching? Why did they pick me? Why did they believe this is the kind of journey they want to be on? I think also having a coach that invests in their own personal growth and development. I love it when I'm able to share with a client, I just read this book, I think this is going to be fantastic for you, or you mentioned your daughter is interested in this, and have you tried this? Here's a website. Or when my own coach says, wow, I just learned about this, what do you think? That kind of continued resource sharing to me is really important, because then they're not stagnant.
Yeah.
Right.
Anything
Yeah. I
extra
mean,
about that?
ongoing learning and development, and that's.
And a commitment to it. I mean, a dedication to it.
Yep.
Yeah, a passion. I'm sure, well, I should say, I'm guessing that if you hire someone for your organization, you pretty much want them to love golf.
Yeah. They have to.
Yeah. So I love coaches who are passionate about coaching, who are passionate about just seeing that transformation. Let's talk about that for a minute. What is that like when you see, to me, being a coach is very humbling. It is very, it is so sacred to be invited to be part of somebody's journey. It really is. But when you watch someone go through the transformation, and when you see them get their own, oh, I get it. Oh, wow.
I just had it. Have it every day. It's just an amazing,
That's why we're coaches.
amazing experience. It's so nurturing and amazing. But I had a equine assisted private session the other day, and it was just so fantastic to watch what transpired in that session. So it was horse had never done this thing, person had never done this thing, and the client went in there, and the horse created a safe space, even though the horse was nervous.
Wow.
And the horse took this person over and became her guardian. And this person is a bigwig, and this person takes care of everybody else, and just handles everything, from being a mom, being a business person, being all kinds of incredible person. So to be able to give herself over, first of all, to see that here was this incredible support, and not just taking over and leading her and making sure she was safe. And I was just witnessing this, honestly. I was really just on the sidelines,
but marveling.
You were holding the space. Of course, yeah. And watching this happen and unfold so that together they could do beautiful things. And they just met,
really?
And so this was all within an hour. It was incredible for this person to be able to experience what does it feel like to be held by another who you don't even know, you never met, with unconditional love in that moment, and together share this experience. And she got it.
Wow.
Really, really huge.
That's a huge piece, I think. You can make these shifts like that.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
It is fantastic to me to have be with a client long term, but there are just incredible ahas that happen all the time that are, you're right, that's just like the best.
Yeah.
It must be, well, just tell me, what is it like when you take someone in your program and you see that first, when they just start to get that golf bug? You know what that bug looks like.
I do.
You know what that looks like.
Yeah, it's like sitting in a field on a nice summer day and it's raining. And the rain is hitting you, but it's not bothering you. It's giving you a strength, and it's giving you an energy. That's what I get.
So it's refreshing.
It's very refreshing.
Enthusiastic.
Exactly.
Wow.
It is both. It's those things.
It's really so special to watch someone blossom.
It is.
And to see them with their successes. That's what's fantastic about coaching.
It really is.
And the coaches that I've had that have been really stellar are the ones that they are my cheerleader, they are my teacher, they are my mentor, but they give me space to unfold. That has been the best experience I've had.
Absolutely.
They've given of themselves.
They've given of themselves, and there's always, just like you were talking about, you hold the safe space, you create the environment. If it's a coaching call, for example, it's okay, we'll meet on the phone at 6 o'clock on Wednesday, whatever it is, you've done your pre-work, whatever your process is. For you, it's be out there at 6:45.
Right.
I'm coming to get you.
That's right.
And you have the equipment, the tools, whatever they need. But you're showing up as a coach. We have to show up.
Yeah.
And enthusiastic and refreshed. And guess what? Some days aren't the best for us either. But man, when it's time to coach, you got to be on.
You got to be on, you got to be clear. And so you can't be bringing all those little energetic hanger-ons from what just happened into their moment, because their moment needs to be as clean as possible so they can do whatever they need to do in that moment.
Right, we're committed to them.
Yes.
We're committed to our clients as well. So we've talked a lot about the different kinds of coaches, clients, a lot of issues around this topic. Let's talk about how you find a coach. Now, you could find a mentor in your church, in an organization. You could find one in your neighborhood. Yay for Brett, by the way. Good for you. However, you can, I like to find them through referrals, by the way. You've given me referrals for coaches, for book coaches.
Yeah, back and forth, yeah.
I love those. I look at social media when somebody talks about coaches. I meet coaches at all kinds of professional events. Most of my coaches have not been local, however. That doesn't make any difference because we all have those new computer things. Yeah, so it works out great.
Chromebook.
Yeah, there we go. So it works out great, and you can Google everything. Any tips that you would have? Oh, and I would say have an initial Some people will have free sessions. Some people will have, there could be a nominal fee for an individual session. I have something called a clarity session. If it's somebody that's in my social circle that I want to have a mastermind or be a mentor, I will say, can we talk about this? Here's what I would love. Here's what I would need. What do you need? But set it up so you know what's going on. What would you add to that?
Yeah, I think it's really important to do your due diligence, because the best coaches, you want to be able to feel safe. Even if you don't feel safe, you want to be willing to be vulnerable. Right. And so whatever the criteria, so for me, when I'm looking for a coach, I really want to see them on YouTube. You know, I want to see what have they done, like if they've done a video on something, if they're, and obviously get a complimentary, I do complimentary consultations, because I'm not a great match for everybody. And if I'm not a good match for somebody, I got to tell them, no, you know, why don't you call my friend Diane or somebody else?
There has to be a connection.
Because it's not, there's a certain type that I can work with really, really well, who will really benefit from me, and I know who those folks are. So that's why we have this kind of interview session to try to figure that out. But scope them out. Referrals are the best, but then really talk to people, call the person, get a complimentary session if you can, and check them all out. Google the heck out of their name. Read their book if they wrote a book. Watch their stuff. Get the copy of their old newsletter or some kind of thing, so you've got a pre-information so that you know when you're going in, even to the complimentary conversation. That's a good use of time, because this is a big commitment.
Right.
And it's not inexpensive. You know, the good ones are not inexpensive. It's an investment, and it's something that the return on investment, as a business strategist, I have to say, it's lifelong. So it's not just the 3-month, 6-month, year term. It is literally going to change your life for the rest of your life if you so choose.
Absolutely. And I love everything that you said. Do the due diligence. I think that's wonderful. And understand what you want and what the process is. You have to connect, whether it's somebody you know, even if it's somebody in your family. You need to understand what you want out of this process, and they need to understand. Is that something, can they challenge you? Not a lot of family members can. My family did, but not everybody can do that, right? And there has to be a connection. I agree. There have been clients that have been wonderful, wonderful people. When it's not a right fit, it's not a right fit. We're here to serve. Sometimes the best way I can serve someone is give them referrals.
Yep.
Yeah.
And sometimes it's to a mental health professional, could be to a consultant, it could be to another coach. How can we best serve this person? That's what it's all about, and that's what's been my experience with coaching. I really appreciate you all being here
Thank you.
today.
Thank you.
Thank
Craig,
you.
where can people find out more about you and your organization?
They can go online. They can Google Golf My Future, My Game, or you can go to www.golfmyfuturemygame.org.
Thank you, Craig.
Thank
Sherry.
you.
Yeah, so for me, just Google me, Sherry Goodwin. Google it, jaeger2.com, Jaeger, the number 2.com is my website. There's YouTube videos, a few up there. I think I have 2 subscribers, maybe 3.
I did. You're up to 4.
No, anyway, so there's a lot of stuff. Read the book, you know, I've got another one coming out, and yeah, lots of different ways. Thank you, Diane.
Thank you so much for being part of this. I want to encourage you to follow us on YouTube. You can find out more about me and my work at DianeHayworth.com. All of our information will be in the credits. I want to thank our crew. I want to thank our producer, Tremaine. Thank you so much for everything you do to make sure we're on the air. And thank you for watching. I appreciate it so much. I will see you next time at Heart Centered Success with Diane Hayworth.